Hello, everyone, and welcome back here. Today, we're going to focus on project number 4, and project number 4 is going to involve a landscape photo, preferably with the landscape layout or a 3:2 ratio. So, let me show you a few pictures here that can work well for this. I'm going to go in here and look at some of these landscape pictures here. This might be a good one here, where you have a foreground, you have like a middle section, and then you have the sky or the background. So you're essentially looking for three sections, right? A back area, a middle area, and the front area or the foreground. Let's see here. Yeah, we can keep going there. Here's another one that could possibly work. We have the sky. Here's the background. The middle ground would be the ocean here at AT&T Park, and then the foreground would be the stadium with the onlookers here. So that would be possibly a good one. Uh, Same thing here. We got background, middle ground, foreground. So any of these can work. Well, that's a nice one there too. And this one too. This is a nice one. I think maybe I'll use this one because it has really easily defined lines. So you have background sky, middle ground would be the canyon here, and then the foreground would be this ground leading up to where we're standing here. So that's a good photo, and that could probably work well. So I'll probably use that one. Um, so there's a couple ways you can go about this. Um, One way is you can just go straight into After Effects. Once that's open, then again, of course, you want to click New Project here in the upper left-hand corner, and then New Composition here. You can also find that under Composition, New Composition there, or Control N. So our preset's going to be custom. We are going to use a 320 pixel by 240 pixel image or canvas size. Duration's going to be 5 seconds, and our frame rate is 30 or 29.97 is your normal 30-second. Close enough, right? 29.97. Click OK. Oh, we can also name this composition too, or we can do that later. Let's do that later. So there's our setup here. Now I just want to get that, if I just want to get that photo in here, I can click on my folder where it is and just grab that photo here. This is the original here. So I can grab that and drop it in. And notice there, wow, it's a much bigger, higher resolution than 320 by 240. So what am I going to do here? Well, probably the easiest way would be to resize the photo once you get it in here. So if I'm on this layer here, I can go up to Layer, Transform, Scale. And here where it says percentage of source, instead of that, I'm going to go pixels. So let's change percentage of source here to pixels. And I'm just going to change these numbers. If the current aspect ratio changes, then you click this chain to unlock it. But let's try 320 here for our width. Then click down here and do 240 for our height. And there you see the photo fitting here in the canvas now perfectly. And just to show you there, you can see it moving around there. Now notice here that the photo is much longer than 320 by 240. That can confuse some of you when you're doing this project, and I'll show you why in a second here. First thing we want to do before we get into anything else, though, is to think about this in terms of three different layers. We're going to have a background layer, or the sky, a middle layer, or the canyon, and finally the foreground, or the front here. So to accomplish this, we're going to split this up into three layers. And we do that by taking this layer here, click there once, choose Control D, and do it one more time, and now we have three layers. We'll name this top one, the top layer. So to rename one of these layers in your layer window, just right click on it, on the name here, choose rename, and then just name your layer. So top, and then hit enter. Let's go to the second layer, same thing, right click, rename. We'll call this middle. And then the last layer, again, rename, we'll call this oh yeah, I was going to call this front. Yeah. So let's call this one front, and this top one we'll call background or back. Okay, so we have a back layer, a middle layer, and a front layer. And you'll see why that's important here as we move along. Now, to accomplish what we're going to accomplish, we're going to need to use the masking tool or the pen tool, and we're going to mask out elements in each layer. Okay, so I'm going to start with the back layer, which is going to be the sky up here. Now, here's where I told you when you have a picture that's longer than your canvas, you're going to run into some problems. And let me show you what I mean here. Okay, to accomplish this, we have to use what's called the pen tool up on top here. So if you go to the top toolbar here on the top of the screen, you'll see that little pen. Click the pen tool there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go down to the layer here, which is, in this case, we're doing back or the sky, and double click on it. You have to double click on it to get this into editing mode. So, and to show you what I mean, if you look on our monitor screen up on the top here, we have layer back, and then we have composition comp. That's our regular composition layers here, and this is the editing layer window for the back layer. Okay, and again, I accomplished that simply by double clicking on the word back here in my layers window. Now what we want to do is zoom out on this so we can see it better. So again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go up to layer, and we're going to transform this layer or this editing layer to scale down to 320 by 240. So 320 by 240. Oops. 240 there. Okay, click OK. And notice there it hasn't changed at all, right? So in this layer here, in this editing layer, you can't change the size in the same way. So let's double click on this again. So the only thing you can do here when you go into the editing window to edit this layer is to grab the zoom tool and just zoom out on it. And so what I did was I grabbed the magnifying glass on the toolbar, and it's set to zoom in. We see the plus sign there. If I want to zoom out, I'm just going to hold the Alt button on my keyboard and then click while I'm holding Alt. And there, now I can zoom out on the layers. There I zoomed in. If it's off center here, you can grab your hand tool and drag it into the frame here. In this case, we're only looking at the top portion there. So that's what we want to edit here. Let's zoom out one more time. Grab this. You can also use the middle button on your mouse to zoom in. And there's our picture that we're going to edit here. Now, this is a really, really long picture compared to our composition frame, if you've noticed here. Let's get out of our editing layer here. Notice here the picture exceeds the boundary of the canvas. So we're going to have to draw our lines. We have to make sure that our lines that we draw are outside the edge of the photo. Not necessarily, outside the edge of the canvas. Not necessarily all the way around the edge of the photo. Let me show you what I mean. But I think when we go into the editing layer that it won't grab my selection tool there again. It won't allow us to do that. We'll have to go around. So you will actually probably be easier just to draw your border all the way around. So you're going to have to go all the way across the photo this way, which isn't a big deal. Grab your pen tool again here. But let's say I'm just doing this really quickly to show you. So you're going to have to go according to the editing window here. it'll be easier if you just do the whole thing. So I'm going to show you an easier way to accomplish this and not have to do so much. And normally I would do this much closer to the edges here to get it accurate. But I'm just doing this for an example here. Okay, let's say, okay, there I've drawn my mask here. And you join those, and notice there it masks out the other elements of that layer. So let me show you an easier way to accomplish this. I'm going to come back. We're going to go into Photoshop though, and I'll show you how you can make this photo the right size before you even bring it into After Effects. Okay, I'm back here. Hello. And again, we're going to minimize this After Effects file without closing it. And we're going to go into Photoshop and resize the photo to the right dimensions for this project. Again, this is another way of how we can utilize Photoshop and After Effects together. So I'm going to click on Photoshop here. Just close that for a second. Let's see if I can do this. Let's go new file here. And here, okay, so what I'm doing is I'm going into new file. And I'm just going to change over here. You can put your details here. I'm going to change inches here to pixels. And again, I'm going to go 320 by 240 pixels. Resolution, let's leave it 300 just to see what happens. Normally this would be lower, but let's try it. So 300 by 240 pixels. Click Create. And there's my canvas. Notice how small it is. But what I can do is I can grab my magnifying glass on my toolbar here in Photoshop. If not, you can turn on your tools here under Window, Tools, and then magnifying glass will show up here. There it is. So I'm going to click there, and notice it's set to plus. If I want to zoom out, I'll hit the Alt key. If I don't want to zoom out, I'll just hit the mouse button. Okay, so there I've blown up my canvas so I can see it better. And now I'm going to grab that same photo that's much larger, of course, and bring it in here. So let's go to A4 there, and here's my landscape here. This is the original photo. And just drop it in there. And notice there, it brought it in, but it's not the same aspect ratio as my file that I set up. So I'm going to have to resize this a little bit to make it work. Okay. All I'm doing is grabbing the corner and dragging it up for a little ways. And then I'll reposition it. And I may want to keep that tree in the foreground a little bit. So keep doing that until it kind of fills up the canvas here. Or do I want to go this way with it? Probably want to go this way. Keep the people out of it if I can. Something like that. That looks good right there. So I'm going to keep that. Hit enter. And voila. Now my photo is about the size of my canvas. Now up here on the top, this cross here on the very top of my toolbar is the move tool. So now I can move this thing around and get it set right. Up in there, and that looks pretty good. Or I can just move this over, like I said, just to reset it to where I want it. That looks pretty good right there. And that would probably work right there, something like that. Let's bring more of that tree in there a little bit. There we go. So that looks pretty good right there. So I'm going to hit enter if I haven't already done that. And now I'm going to save this out as a 320 by 240. And if I go to image, I can look at image size here and see that, oh, it's off here. What's going on here? But if you look at dimensions, it says 320 by 240 here at the end. Okay. So if I change this to pixels, it should say 320 by 240, and it does. So we're good there. So now to save this out, there's an easy way to do this, to export it. If you go to the layers over here In the right here, you see my layer window. And if you don't see that, you can turn it on under window. So you can turn it off. Now watch, if I go to window and turn on layers, it comes back on there. And let me bring this over so you can see it a little easier. And this layer here, all I have to do is I can right click it. So go to your layers window here, and it's just to the right of our canvas where it says IMG 1317. That's our picture. We're going to right click that with our mouse, and we're going to export, quick export as it'll either be a JPEG or a PNG, or you can change the type of picture that it is right here. Again, instead of a PNG, I might change it to a JPEG. Okay. Or in this case, you can just right click and do a quick export as a PNG if you want. There's the image. I'll just call this resized landscape. And then I'll put 320 by 240 so I know what size it is maybe. And saving into my 4 folder. There you go. So now I have a photo that's the correct size for my After Effects project. And so I won't have to worry about going beyond the edges of the canvas when I'm drawing my masks. So I can close this out now. And now I can go back into After Effects and import in the photo that's already the correct size. Okay, so now that we've resized our photo, we'll go back to After Effects here. And let's bring that photo in. And I'll just click that folder with the photo that I resized here, resized landscape. Drag that in, and it should just pop in perfectly there. So look, our edges are where the edges really need to be. So that's good. So what we're going to do now, again, is take this here. Let's rename this. We'll call this, well, let's hold off on that. Let's duplicate this. So again, if you look at your layer window, you're going to see your layer there, and you just select the name of it there. And we're going to duplicate that by hitting Control plus D 2 times. And we're going to rename each of these layers here. So the top layer here will be back for background layer. Okay, and the middle layer will be middle. And again, all I'm doing is right-clicking clicking the layer, and then right-click mouse button, go to rename, and then just choose front or foreground there, and then name it. So we have a back, middle, and a front. So I think we'll work with the back first here on top here. And so I'm going to make sure I'm on that layer. So make sure you select the correct layer. And we're going to mask out all the elements of this back layer except for the sky. So I'm going to go up to my tools on the top of my screen and grab the pen tool, and you can see it's blue here, the pen tool. So click that. And then to do this, again, we have to get this background layer into editing mode by double clicking the actual layer name. So double click where it says back, and notice there you can see it. It's nice and perfect. There's no picture that goes outside the border. And we can also zoom in on it more too. You may want to do that. So I click the zoom in tool and then grab my hand grabber tool, and I can move it around. So now I'll grab my pen tool now that I'm in the editing window. And you can look up on top of the canvas screen. You have a layer back. And then also to the left it says Composition Comp 1. That's your composition layer of all 3 of your layers. And then this is your editing layer. So now let's grab our pen tool and we'll draw our mask. So I'm going to start outside the edge of the border here. I'm going to try to get as close to the edges of the other objects as I can without touching them. But you'll see that that'll help you in the long run when you're doing this. Just makes it easier to make your final adjustments at the end. So try to get as close to the edge as you can. You don't have to, hit it all perfectly. But it will make your life easier if you're the closer you are to the edge of your other surfaces. And here I can go back and drag one of these handles out, if you notice there. Okay, and we'll keep going here. And it really does help to zoom in a bit here. All right, and let's go one there. And again, we can even add these points later. There's really so much you can do. Just try to get a basic outline done first, kind of on the outside of these others. And here I can just bring that down a little bit. There we go. And you just try to feel it out until you can get something going there. Well, I had it there. There we go. And then we can move it out a little bit. You can see you don't have to get it exact. It does help, though, the closer you can get to your the border of the other one, the better. So again, I might bring these down after I click them. You know, just close enough kind of thing. Then click on the last one again to keep going. And just go all the way across. And sometimes you can just do a straight line like that. Okay, now I'll grab the hand grabber tool again and move this over. Notice here I got to go much farther than I thought, but that's fine. Think about how much more I would have had to do if I hadn't brought this down to 320 by 240, right? Okay, and then you just keep going. Looks like a pretty straight line here. You can bring these down to adjust them a little bit more. And again, I'm just going back to the points and dragging them down a little bit. Click on the last one, the last point here again to keep going. And then here I can go right outside the border. Okay, hand grab tool again, bring this over. Click once over here. Let me grab the pen tool first. You got to select the pen tool. And then one more on here to join them. And once the mask is joined from beginning to end, all the points are connected. Notice there we've masked out all the other elements except for the sky on that layer. Okay, so for now I'm done with that mask on the back layer, so I can close that. Oops, let me grab my selection tool again. Close that, go back to my composition layer. And notice here that even though I'm not in the editing window, I'm in the regular composition window, you can still see your mask that you created. And you can also hide that too. If you look down on the bottom of your monitor window, this button down here that's in blue, it's the toggle mask and shape path visibility. You can actually turn that off if you don't want to see it when you're in composition window, and turn it back on when you need to. Okay, so that's my mask for my top layer. In the next section of the video, I'm going to draw the mask for the middle section, which is going to encompass the canyon area in green and the tree as well. So I'm going to start working on that, and then we'll come back and then do the final mask, which will be the foreground right here. Okay, so now that I have my first mask drawn, and you can see there I'm on the back layer, or the sky in the background. If I turn these off, if I turn the eye off on each of my layers, you'll see the mask is there. Now check this out. I'm going to take this mask, since I already drew these points along this horizon here. I'm going to take this mask and copy it and just paste it into the next layer. So I'm going to take this back right here and actually click the arrow there, the little arrow to the left of the word back there. And you'll see that there's a masks control there. Click that arrow open. Click on mask 1, just make sure it's selected. And then go up and choose edit, copy, or control C should work. Once you've copied the mask, now I can paste it into this middle layer. So if you go up to middle, now go to edit, choose paste, and notice there now I have that same mask in my middle layer. Pretty cool. So now what I can do is, I'll lock that. I want to turn these on. I'm going to turn on my layers here again. And that one, yeah. And on this one down below, I'm actually going to use this part that I already drew. Now I can go back in the back layer like I was before, and I can zoom in. Let's say I want to zoom in real extreme, and I can move some of these points. Again, just by grabbing the selection tool. And I can move these around, make some adjustments. I don't need to do too much, I don't think, right now, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm going to be using the same border for the other layer. So I'm going to try to keep it mostly the way it is now. There might be some like over here that are really off, so I might grab my selection tool and kind of tighten it up a little bit. But I'm not going to get too crazy detailed on this one, just to see how this works out. Okay, and then let's go over here. You can see there's a few points there that I could probably make a little closer to the action here, to the horizon line, but nothing too serious. I think I'll be okay. Actually, let's leave that one back where it was. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom back out on that. Let's leave it about there. Let's go to middle. Actually, let's zoom out a little bit more. Okay, and let's do this. Let's take this mask on the middle layer. Make sure you grab your selection tool here, and make sure you're on the right layer, which is the middle layer here. And let's go to this mask here. And what we're going to do is, better yet, maybe you shouldn't be clicked on the mask, but let me see. Yeah, don't click on the mask itself here. Let's just click on middle. Grab this point here and just drag it down to where you want it to kind of start for the bottom of your middle layer. Let's say about right there. Now I'll grab this point and drag that down to about here where it's going to start. And then what I'll do is I'll use the pen tool to create all my bottom points here. Okay, so let's start it about there. Now I'm going to click my pen tool and just go along here now. And I should be able to just edit this line here by clicking points. So that's kind of neat. All right, and then I can click here and just start making that path here. That's a little tricky, that bend there. So, but that's what I want to do. Oops. All right, so let's see if we can just take that up. Yeah, to about there, I guess. And one here, maybe. Then just go along here again. Just do the best you can. You can always move these points later. And just take your time. Go slow. You don't want to screw something up. Like, let's say you accidentally double click on it right here. Uh-oh, look what I did. Now you've selected all those. Don't panic. It just means you switched your tool back to the selection tool. Okay, just grab your pen tool again. And let's just try to, here, let's do this. Double click off of that. And let's see if we can grab our pen and start creating a few more paths there. There we go. And just get right back to it. Okay, and then we'll go up here. One down here. We'll just follow this line here. Okay, one there. Here you can kind of speed the process up a little bit. All right. And then let's look at this. Let's see where we want to. Yeah, I guess we'll just follow this line right there. Kind of stay on the outside there. Oh, it did it again. So there, let's do that. Just click another point here. Oops. Let's do this. There we go. No, don't want to do that. Make sure on the middle. There we go. Just like, and like I said, just take your time. It's not, you don't have to hurry through this. In fact, you'll probably, if you try to hurry, you'll probably make more mistakes than you want. So, anyway, that's my advice. This thing seems to work out a little better if you take your time. Okay. Oops. And let's do this. Eggs. Okay. All right, so I'm going kind of fast here. I'll have to make some adjustments along the way here. But I think you get the idea. Well, it looks pretty good right there. So now, if you take a look at this, if we turn the eyeball off on the back layer and the front layer, you'll see now we've masked out the middle part. So now we've got the middle masked and we've got the back masked. And you can see they both have their individual masks. So the last step then will be to create the mask for the bottom layer, or what's called the front layer right here. So we'll do that next. So the last step for this masking process is to mask out the foreground or the front layer down here. So again, I'm going to take this middle layer, this middle mask that I made, and you can see that it's working there when you turn the eyeballs off on the other two layers. And we're just going to copy and paste that mask right here over to this front layer down below, and we'll just use this edge that we already created. So kind of neat that way. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that one back on. Now here on the middle layer, we'll click open the arrow, click the arrow down where it says masks. We're going to just select and copy mask 1, Control C to copy it. And I'm just going to go down now to the front layer and just hit Control V to paste it. And notice there now the mask is on our front layer. And we're going to change that up now simply by... Now if you look at the top here, if we zoom in, I'm just using the middle mouse button to zoom in this time. You can use the middle mouse to zoom in and out. I'm going to want to eliminate all these points along here, it looks like. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab the delete vertex tool and see if we can delete all of these by selecting them. There we go. So now if you grab the delete vertex tool up here where the pen tool is, then you can select a whole area of them, and then once they're selected like that, then you can hit delete. And so we're just going to do that for the majority of them here. And now it looks like we have mostly a straight line, so that should be a little bit easier. And you can just click on the individual ones that you want to delete. So now we have a straight line. So this is going to be super easy for us at this point. So now I'm going to take this point up here. I think I just need to grab my selection arrow tool up top. And now I can just grab this and drop this down where it needs to be, right on the edge. And let's move this one in too. Let's get it just right. I like that. That's perfect. Maybe about right there. And then we can just grab this point that we saved and bring it down here like so. The same thing, we can bring them right into the edge if we want, or we can leave them outside a little bit. That's fine too. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. And voila, then you've created the mask for the front layer just by copying that other one and then deleting some of the points and then moving the remaining points down below. And we deleted the points using the delete vertex tool here, up where the pen tool is. All right, so basically we've made 3 masks. One on the back layer, which is in the sky in the background. One in the middle layer, which is the canyon. And then finally one in the foreground or the front. So the reason we do this is because when we look at a zoom of an area, the logic behind this is that the foreground's going to move a little faster. The middle ground's going to be the second fastest layer to move toward us. And then finally, the sky in the background you would expect to move the slowest, whatever's in the very far background. So basically, essentially what we're doing in this assignment is we're zooming each of these masks, but at different rates. So how do we accomplish this? Well, step 1 is to pick a layer. So we're going to pick the front layer, and we can zoom in that one first. And let's say our video is about 5 seconds long, let's say, okay? Just like I have it here. So what we're going to do is open up the transform controls under the front layer. Click on transform here, and we're simply going to scale this thing up. So we're going to start at the beginning. And so what you do when you scale or when you create a transformation, you have to keyframe it. And the keyframing process is super simple in After Effects. So we put our scrub control down here in the timeline to 0. And we're going to start by scaling this by creating a keyframe. And you do that by opening up the transform window here, clicking on the little stopwatch to the left of scale. Okay, by clicking that stopwatch, we've essentially created a keyframe at 0 there. And you can see the blue diamond here. Okay, so there's our scale. We're at 100% at the beginning. As this thing moves along, let's say about 3 seconds in, this thing scales up to, I don't know, 110, let's say. We're going to go 110 on this. That's a pretty good zoom right there, right? And notice here on the timeline, we have another keyframe. After Effects auto keys it for you. So it'll key all the in-between steps. So when I play this thing, you're going to see it's already zooming up, right? Okay, cool, all right. So let's go back to the beginning here. Shift home. Okay, Shift home's your shortcut back to home base. And now we're going to go to the middle layer. And we are also going to zoom this thing. So what we're going to do is click open our transform controls. At 0, we're going to be at 100%. And then as this thing moves along, we're going to have to scale this thing up, but not as quickly as the as this top layer. So let's also check this out. You can open both layers and look at them at the same time. So you can see where your keyframe is here. Down here you can see this one stopped zooming right here. Or our middle layer should probably stop a little after that, right? So we're going to go about here, maybe to about right. Well, let's try right there, in between 3 and, well, let's try 4 seconds, let's say. So at 4 seconds, this thing will be zoomed up to what? 110 here. Let's do the same scaling. So 110 there, that looks pretty close. And so you could see we have, if I click off of that keyframe, you can see we have this keyframe here, and then this one that follows a little past this one. In other words, this one's scaling up slower. It takes longer along the timeline to get it to 110. And you can see there we're going to need to make some adjustments there before we get this thing perfect. And now the next one is going to be our back layer or our sky on the top, right? So again, if I open the middle and the front layers, you can see where our zooms in for each layer. The foreground one zooms to 110% before any of the others. The middle layer just after that, a second later. The back layer on top, we'll have that go to 5 seconds. So we're going to go ahead and go to transform. Make sure, again, you bring your scrub key back to 0 on the timeline. And we're going to hit the scale stopwatch to start keyframing it. And we're going to go all the way to 5 seconds now, let's say, and scale that up to 110 like the others. So we're going to use the same rate of scaling just to see how this works. And there's what we have right there. So now we have, you can see the progression here. Let me move this up. You can see we have the front layer on the bottom. Stop zooming at 3 seconds. The middle layer stopped zooming at 4 seconds. And then finally, our final layer. Let's see if I can. I'm not sure if I created a keyframe for that. I thought I did. Yeah, final layer, which is right here, is at 5 seconds. So you see this nice progression of time. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at this and see what it looks like. I think we're close, but we're going to need to make some adjustments too along the way. So you can get the space bar and you can see the zoom, but we see this start to come apart at the end, right? Okay, so what we need to do there maybe is make some adjustments on our speeds. So now, since this one's pulling away from the other one, let's just take our middle layer. Let's see, here's middle, yeah. And here's the bottom layer. And let's move this over a little bit so it zooms a little faster. Let's try that and see what that looks like. And in doing so, let's do that with the top layer too. Let's bring it over a little bit and see if we can adjust that zoom a little bit. We still see a little bit of coming apart there, right? So let's go ahead and instead of moving these, what we'll do is we'll zoom it, we'll scale it a little more. So when I get to this keyframe, see if I go to the middle layer here, when I get to this keyframe, I should be above 110% probably to avoid that line there. So I'm going to bring this one up to about maybe 114, 115, something like that. Let's see what that looks like. Okay. So you can see here I'm making some adjustments. Actually, let's keep these open. And again, we can turn off the mask path that we created. And see when you're zooming there. Now we've got a nice artificial zoom. We're getting there. But you see this starts zooming over the other one. So let's move these back to where they were. So the timing was off there a little bit. So I'm going to move the keyframes back to the 4 and 5 second mark just to make sure we're not overlapping some of the other layers. Defying physics here. And they just kind of watch it. Yeah, it looks pretty good right there. We're getting close. This layer here we could probably zoom in a little more too, the front layer. So let's do that. Let's go to the front layer, and we're going to go a little above 10% or actually maybe we can keep this thing zooming. Let's move this one over on the bottom and see what happens there. That one I think needs to keep moving a little bit more. Okay. Let's try that. Maybe move these a little closer together. So you might need to make some adjustments on the timing here, but that's okay. That's better. And the idea is to create an artificial zoom where the foreground comes in a little quicker than the background or the clouds in the sky. And the idea is to create an artificial zoom there. That's very close. We can move these maybe even a little closer and still be on the mark here. Okay. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So what you do is you move each of these 3 layers at slightly different rates, and then you make adjustments. If you need to move the keyframes around, you can. If you need to resize the layers so there are no gaps, and then you're good to go. And then you're basically you just want to make it a smooth kind of zoom that looks natural. Okay, and then when you're finished, make sure you save your file, and you'll actually turn in your After Effects file rather than sending me Rather than emailing me a JPEG, you'll turn in the AEP file. Okay, so the final step is to save out your file properly. Since you're not exporting this or compressing it into another file type, you're going to have to save not only the After Effects project, but also any assets that go along with it. That includes the photo here, right? That could be also video files, audio files. So if you and a friend are sharing an After Effects file between two computers, you not only have to save the project file, but you also have to save all of the, the raw assets that go with it, the video files, the audio files, picture files, etc. Thankfully, After Effects has made it super, super easy. And here's how you do it. When you're ready to send me your After Effects file, this is what you want to do. You want to go up to File, go down to Dependencies, and choose Collect Files. It's so easy. File, Dependencies, Collect Files. Source files, just make sure all is selected. Everything else, just leave alone. Click Collect. Here it's going to create a folder with not only your project, but also with your assets, which is nice. So it does it all for you, and it's going right into my number 4 folder, so that's perfect. Click Save. And that's pretty much it. So here in my number 4 folder, here's my folder. It not only has my project file, but it also has all of my raw assets, which in this case is only a photo. But that's how you do it. And then the last thing you want to do then is email it to me via Canvas. So let me show you an easy way to do that. So let's go over to Canvas real quick. Go into your 284 class. Go ahead and create a new email through Canvas. Let's see, we're doing 284. I'm just going to send this one to me as an experiment. I'm just going to call this 4-Acker. Here is my project. You have to write something here. It kind of sucks, but that's the way it goes. And now what I'm going to do is attach it. So I'm going to click Add an Attachment. And I'm going to find that folder right here. Let me get rid of this one. That one, I already did that, but I want to make sure. Okay, so you go find, let's try that again. Sorry. So you click on the attachment. And then you go up to, wait, here. Okay, so so you click on the Add an Attachment, the paperclip there. You'll see your folder here, but notice here you cannot add it, right? So the easiest way to do this is to right-click on it, go down to Send To, and then create a compressed or zipped folder, right? So compressed folder, Send To, choose compressed folder. So again, right-click on the folder, go down to Send To, compressed zip folder, and there it is, right? So now you can click on the compressed folder, click Open, and there it is attached to your email. Okay, so that's the final step that you have to do to get it to attach to your email. Then just go ahead and click Send. And you're done. That's basically it. So again, don't skip this last step. What you need to do, again, when you get this done, is to go up to File, Dependencies, and Collect Files to create that folder. And then you want to compress that folder in Canvas when you're about to email it to me so you can attach it. Okay?